on Tuesday, April 19th, we'll have part 2 of this Publishing Academy, and that will focus on the article acceptance and beyond. So Ms. Karen Vaughan with the university libraries will address scholarly communication issues such as author rights, open access publishing, and research metrics and impact.
What I'm going to talk about is article acceptance and beyond. But before I do that, what I feel like I want to do is talk a little bit more about part 1 and some additions that I have to that. So if you did come to that, hopefully you'll remember all the wonderful advice that they gave you about writing, about selecting the journal, tips for talking to editors and things like that. Then I'm just going to quickly answer a question in case anyone has it about, are you able to publish your electronic thesis, well, your thesis or dissertation as an article or a book? I'm going to try to focus on talking about making an impact and how do you measure your impact. So that's after the publishing process. So to start off, I just want to point out that there are a lot of guides. I think I said that. So there is one that I did on where to publish your work. I have this available. So actually, let me go ahead and go there. Let me change my share real quick. Nothing's real quick with me, but I'm going to try. Okay, so hopefully you're seeing the library's website.
Yes.
If you go right down here in the middle, you'll see library guides. And we have lots of guides on all different topics to find research materials. And then over on the right, we have this list of like specialty guides, I guess, they're organized. And if you go to research and publishing support, these are all the different guides that are available for that purpose. So the ones I'm going to be talking about today, actually, copyright, data management, open access, publishing services, no, not publishing services, research metrics, and where to publish. So the first one I want to hit on is where to publish your work. And notice that I have my PowerPoint here under related guides. So you can click on that and go along with me, or you can just have it to refer to later. As far as finding journals, I'm going to leave this right now. I'm going to go back to my PowerPoint, and I have a lot to cover, so I am going to try to do it all in an hour. So there are suggestions for identifying journals, what kind of criteria you want to look at when you're trying to decide what journal to publish, information about article processing charges if you decide to make your article open access, how to avoid predatory journals and such. So that should be a good guide for you on deciding where you should publish. The next thing that they didn't mention that I feel that I need to mention, because this is an area that I strongly believe in, and that is to consider publishing your work open access. What open access does is it makes your material free to read, hopefully immediately available, and free to reuse, but you have control over that, and you can apply Creative Commons licensing, which I'll talk about a little later, to decide how you want other people to use your work. So the benefits are that it increases the visibility. Your work will be available globally to anybody, and so more people will read it, more people will hopefully cite it. So it has been proven that open access articles are cited more, like I've heard as much as 50%, and downloaded more than subscription-based articles. The ones that are published commercially, someone has to be a subscriber in order to get to the article. And so they're just not as available. A lot of times funders will require, if you're getting a grant from a federal agency, NSF, NIH, they will require, most of them will require that you have your publication and your data actually open access. A lot of times if you are getting a grant, make sure that you write that into your grant funding so that you don't have to pay out of pocket to comply with that open access mandate. The other thing is it demonstrates societal impact, and that should be important. The more access people have, the more likely they can build on it, and the more valuable the research becomes. Stop me if you have questions, because I tend to get going a little fast. I also want to mention a few myths. A lot of people still have these ideas about open access that just aren't true. Open access journals are usually predatory and inherently low quality. Now, that is a myth, because open access journals can be leaders in their field. They can have high impact factors, and they are indexed in major scholarly databases. So I have this printout here from Journal Citation Reports, which is where you get the journal impact factor. And this is the top 10 journals in biology. And you'll notice the, wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, the 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th are all open access journals. So they are legitimate. Some people think they don't do peer review. The vast majority do the same identical peer review that traditional journals use. And Science Citation Index, which is one of the major scholarly databases, and others require peer review in their selection process. So they're not going to index journals that are not peer reviewed for the most part. Another myth, that if you're asked to pay anything, it's predatory. And that's a myth, because publishing costs money. And so in order for publishers to publish something open access, they want compensation for that. And so that usually is called an article processing charge. It can be very high depending on the publisher. The larger commercial for-profit publishers, they're going to have higher APCs than society publishers, or the other thing I want to mention is that there are open access journals that you don't have to pay an APC for, because they're subsidized by a university. We have a publishing platform, so the journals that we have are totally open. You don't have to pay to publish in them. And government agencies, as well as like eLife is one of those that's published by a few open access promoters, kind of organizations, nonprofit organizations that promote open access. And the other thing is, it's after acceptance that you will be asked for the open access fee. A lot of predatory publishers, they ask you for a fee up front. So they're going to say, if you give us, $2,000, we'll publish your article. Don't do that. So if they say, if it's a journal that's legitimate, they're going to, after they accept it, they're going to give you the option to have it open access and tell you what the fee is. Actually, they'll tell you all that up front. Okay, again, ask me questions because I'll go fast. So again, the article processing charge, it's, for publishing, they claim, for the peer review, they have to submit for the formatting, etc. A lot of that is kind of bogus, because the peer reviewers end up being faculty who do it free. Formatting, maybe that's a, cost, but not as high as some of those APCs are. But then again, they lose revenue because people aren't subscribing to the journal if they can get it free. So it's understandable that there is a fee, because nothing's free, but it's the high cost of some of those fees that's prohibitive. And so on the guide that I have for publishing, I have, there are some APC waivers that are possible. So let me just real quickly go back to that. This one. So there is a tab here for article processing charges. And if you want to publish open access and you happen to be in humanities and social sciences, we have an agreement with Cambridge University Press that if you are the primary author, the corresponding author, you can get the APC paid for because of the contract that we have with them. Virtual Library of Virginia offers a lot of services to libraries in Virginia, and a few of those Wiley journals, if it's a fully gold Wiley journal, which means fully open access, you can get it paid for or have it discounted. And that, these are long-term agreements, so 3 years anyway. ACM journals, if you're in engineering And then Rockefeller University Press, there's a few of theirs, cell biology, experimental medicine. And then these others down here, you can get a discount on the APC. But again, if you're getting a grant to do this, then you want the grant to pay for your APC. Okay, and then this is just some of the places, and you'll find these things in the how to publish or where to publish guide. If it's an open access journal, you can get information about it from Directory of Open Access Journals. The Open Access Scholarly and Publishing, I forget what it stands for, will provide information about open access journals. And then this Think, Check, and Submit is a really good service to use for any journal you want to publish in it. It gives you a lot of, it's a guide to how to decide if you're doing the right thing, if you're using the right journal, if you're using a predatory journal, whatever. Okay, so this is just real quick. I mentioned that I would talk about Creative Commons licensing there's a copyright and author rights guide that I have linked here that you can go to get a little more information about Creative Commons licensing. I'm kind of assuming people know about this now because it's been around for a while, but you'll see this, and I don't know if you could see it on the bottom of here, it says licensed under CC BY. So that is, all that means is that if you want to reuse this, you can take it apart, you can do whatever you want with it, but you have to credit it to Spark and PLOS. The more restrictive Creative Commons license is you have to attribute it to the author. It cannot be used for commercial purposes, and it cannot be, it's non-derivative. You can't make derivative works. You can't reuse portions of it. You have to use it as it is. So, and so this, it's available in the PowerPoint. Is just interesting. It goes from open access all the way down to closed access, where none of the full text articles will be available for crawling, for downloading. You give up your copyright. The publisher keeps the copyright. You can't use anything beyond fair use, etc. So you can look a little bit more into that. And then another thing that I wanted to mention that goes along with the publishing part one is your author rights. So when you publish in a lot of different journals, they require that you give up your copyright. You transfer your copyright to them. And so a lot of people don't realize that what they're giving up is their ability to use their own works in future articles or books. You can't really distribute copies to your students, and you can't tell someone else, yeah, you can use this table. I created it. It's mine, because it's really not yours anymore. It belongs to the publisher. So if you want to do these types of things, theoretically, a lot of people do them, I'm sure, but theoretically, you would have to get permission from the publisher, because that's who has the copyright now. And it's not a requirement that you do that. A lot of people get so excited that they're publishing something and they just sign on the dotted line and they don't really read what they're giving up. And there is the option for you to retain some of those rights. And on the copyright and author rights page, there's an addendum that you can create automatically. It generates it for you. And, so when you sign your agreement, what you can just say to them is you're, subject to the attached amendment. And the amendment can say, I want to be able to reuse my work in teaching, future publications, and in all scholarly and professional activities. Seems pretty simple, but and most of the time, from what I understand, publishers will allow that kind of thing. What they won't allow you to do is publish it, not always publish, upload it to a repository. We have a repository, a university repository here at ODU, and what publishers will allow you to do is publish a version of it. So the postprint or the postprint, which is the author's final version before it gets formatted by the publisher. So they've already accepted it, they peer reviewed it, you've made your corrections, and it's ready to be reformatted for the journal. That's the copy a lot of times they will allow you to post in a repository. So that would be the open access copy, but the publisher's version would still be behind a paywall. So, and it can get really complicated because all publishers are different and all disciplines do different things. So, but it's just something to be aware of, that you can retain rights. You don't have to give up your copyright. Research data, this is another thing I just wanted to mention, is that it's a really good thing to share your research data. And you can put it in an open data repository, or you can put it in another repository. We have some data sets in our institutional repository, ODU Digital Commons. And this lets other people benefit from all the research you did. You gathered all that data, it's good, rich data, and someone can take that data and move on with the research and do something else with the research. It also shows that your data is good, it's reproducible and replicable. And a lot of funding agencies require that you also put the data out there for other people to use. And the idea behind the funding agencies saying we want this open access is that it's taxpayers' money that is allowing the funders are giving you taxpayers' money to do your research. So they feel like you can't keep it from the taxpayers if they're funding it, basically. And the data is a rich part of your research, and they're saying that that needs to be available as well. And we do have a guide for data management, and within that guide, there's a data management plan. And a lot of the funding agencies will require that you complete a data management plan that's specific to their requirements. But I also think it's just a really good idea when you're starting your research, if you have a plan for for what your data is going to be, how you're going to collect it, how you're going to store it, how you're going to preserve it. It will just help you keep track and keep that in mind as you're going through your research process. Okay, so that was it for the rest of part one. Oh, I did that pretty fast. Okay, that's good. So the other thing, I sort of assume that graduate students have the question of, can they publish their thesis or dissertation as an article or a book? And the answer is yes, because most publishers do not consider a thesis or dissertation as a published work. And you own the copyright of your dissertation and thesis. So, and you're not going to just publish it in full exactly as it is. If it's in an article, you're going to have to, cut it down, make it shorter. You're going to modify it from the original. Maybe you're going to take a piece of it or one idea or one chapter and go with that. So it's not going to be the exact thesis or dissertation. So you are able to use it. And I put the asterisk there because MIT published a list of publishers, and almost all of them say, yes, you can publish a new article based on your thesis. One of the questions is, though, for different publishers, will they allow you to, if you've published an article in a journal, will they allow you to just put that in as it is? So I know that in business, and I had someone in oceanography, they had created an article and they wanted to just use that. They published it and wanted to use that as a chapter in their thesis, and it was fine. But we did have to check with the publishers to see what the permissions were like. So you can keep that in mind. I know that seems like someone in business, they had just 3 articles. That was their thesis. They talked about the articles, but they just went ahead and plopped them in there as chapters. So I think that happens more and more now. So just keep that in mind, that if you do want to do that, if you want to publish an article in your thesis or dissertation, that you would have to, look at the permissions, definitely. Any questions about that? Any questions so far? Okay. Oh, there are chats. Is anyone saying anything? Sorry.
Karen, I wasn't sure if you wanted me to interrupt and tell chats if you want to just do those at the end.
Okay.
I wasn't sure how you wanted to do it.
Okay, yeah, I can do it at the end, but if you see something that I could just address quickly, that's fine
Okay,
too.
sure. There's a
Okay.
question now about what you were just speaking about articles from ETD's dissertations, if you want to.
Yes, I mean, so that's what I'm saying is, yeah, you definitely can use it. It's your work, and you do want to check with the publisher and see if there's any problem with doing whoever you're trying to publish with. And then maybe that's a way that you're going to pick your publisher. If the publisher says, no, we don't want your dissertation or anything from your dissertation. Yeah, but I mean, there are people that will do a dissertation and put out an article. I don't know, if you know about this, and put out an article or several articles, I mean to say, from one dissertation. So yes, you can do that.
And I know in philosophy, in some of the humanities, sometimes people will be able to publish it as a book.
Yes,
But
yeah.
I can't speak like in generalisms across all of humanities or all of STEM, but yeah.
Yeah, so like especially creative writing, a lot of times creative writing students, they cannot make their thesis or dissertation available because they have a publishing agreement. So yeah, and so to Tanya, I'm getting to that orchid thing too. I'll get there. Okay, so all right, let me move on. So making an impact. So it just depends on what discipline you're in, what your goal is with your research, but there's so many different places that you can make, an impact. And I just listed some of them here. There are probably many other places you can make an impact. But the other thing about an impact, why should you care what impact it's making? There's a lot of reasons for you. If you're in academia, going up for promotion and tenure, or you're in a job, a research job, it's going to be important to your job advancement if you can show what kind of impact your research is making. You can better chances at getting research funding. When you apply for a grant, when you apply for funding, they're going to look at where you've been published. They're going to look at how many citations, who's using your work. That's all part of your impact. If you're in academia, your individual or departmental productivity, a lot of universities keep track of what their faculty is publishing and what journals they're in. You can also use it to find out how others are citing or using your work, where your topic of research is going, how you made a contribution to that based on how other people are using it and what other directions maybe they're taking it in. And then identifying potential collaborators, just finding out who's citing you, who's using your work. So those are some of the reasons that you want to know if you're making an impact. And there are ways that you can increase your impact. So I'm going to talk about these 5 things: getting a researcher ID. There's more than just ORCID, but that's the main one. Getting an online profile. Google Scholar is an important one, but there are others. Getting your work seen and cited, and that's another push for having it open access. You can set up citation alerts so that you're notified every week or anytime somebody cites one of your works. And then using social media. And this is really important nowadays because social media is so prominent. Researchers, I forget how many, I just saw a statistic, use Twitter. I mean, that's one of the main ways that they communicate their research to other people. Okay, so right now I'm going to go to the guide Research Impact and Metrics because that is the one that talks about this topic. And let me see. Okay, where is it? It's behind everything. Okay. So again, you remember to go to the library guides, the research and publishing support, and you'll get to research impact and metrics. So, so the first part of this is increasing your impact. And I also linked the PowerPoint from this page, from the homepage here. as well, so you can see that. All right, so as far as increasing your impact, there are different researcher IDs. So there's ORCID, there's Scopus, there's researcher ID, which is part of Web of Science, and there's Publons, which is also part of Web of Science. The one difference, Publons includes the reviews that you do. So if you are a reviewer, that's important to, you know, for people to know if you're, you know, going up for promotion or trying to get more money for your job, whatever. Because it is a service to other researchers. Okay, so ORCID. Somebody asked about ORCID already, and it's really important for you to have an ORCID. So let me see if people can raise their hands to show me if you have an ORCID. Like do the little hand thing. Okay, Jennifer has one. Only Jennifer? Okay. What discipline are you in, Jennifer?
Psychology.
Psychology, okay. All right, we're okay. That's really great. I'm kind of surprised because what I thought was that graduate students were being encouraged to get ORCID IDs. And the main reason for these, the way it started, was that it gave you a way to disambiguate your name. So I'm looking at some names here. Well, I'll use my name, Karen Vaughan. There are other Karen Vaughns in the world, and they're publishing. And so if I think I'm unique, but you know, the world of publishing doesn't think so. So I have to get a number so that it's unique to me, because my name is not unique. And you'd be surprised. There was, I think, I don't know, there's faculty here who their name is so unusual that you'd think there wouldn't be any other ones, but there are. It's very surprising. The other thing, when you get your ORCID, if you don't do anything with it, then nobody really knows who you are. One of the things that we do is we enter stuff in the institutional repository, ODU Digital Commons, for faculty and students. And we look up to see if they have an ORCID so we can include that. And they'll just have an ORCID with no information. So we don't know if they're the same person that we're looking for. So, so it's important, if you're going to do anything, is put some type of identifying information. And the one we prefer, of course, is that you're affiliated with Old Dominion University, and then we'll know that's the person. But the main thing about having this is that you put your information, you fill it out, and I'm going to show you a sample. And this is Dr. Yusuf. And I like to use her for examples on all of this kind of stuff, because she keeps track of things. She keeps her profiles updated. You can see on the left here, she's got a researcher ID, which is the Web of Science one, a Scopus author ID, which is another major publisher or major scholarly provider. They don't really published it anyway. Okay, her bio's there, where she is, so we know she's the ODU person, and then all of her articles are here, and with links to their DOIs so that you can actually get to the article. Yes.
Sorry to interrupt, but we can't see what you're.
Oh,
we can't
really?
see yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay. Should have told me sooner. Let me see.
I know. Doing
Okay.
the chat.
Okay, now are you seeing it? Well, you're seeing an ORCID. Here, let me see. You see an ORCID for we?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
yes.
All right. So as I was mentioning, she's got her other IDs listed here. You can click on those and get information from those. All of her publications are here, and she's got them linked using the DOI so that you can actually see her publications. So this is an excellent way. She's got any other names that she goes by listed. So that's a really good way to keep up your profile, have an ORCID. And the whole idea behind ORCID is that if you put your stuff in ORCID, there are APIs that will grab that when there's a new thing that comes in and move it to other systems. So the idea behind ORCID is you enter once and it supplies to many different places. And I know you're graduate students, so you may not stay at ODU, but there is a system that we use called digital measures. And that is one of the things that ORCID can populate digital measures. So you put it in ORCID, it goes to digital measures. I don't think that's working right now, but hopefully by the end of the year, we'll have it linked up. But so that's the idea that, and then there's another one that we have scholars at ODU that could do the same thing. So it's really hard to keep up with all your different profiles if you're doing it several times. So the ORCID idea is that you do it once and it populates the other ones. They're not there yet, but it will be there at some point, hopefully. Okay, so are you seeing my screen still where I went back to the guide?
No, I'm seeing ORCID.
Okay, but the guide from the library guide?
Yes.
Okay, okay, all right. So that's basically what ORCID is. It's really easy to sign up for an ORCID. It's free to sign up for an ORCID. What I think I mentioned, enter once, reuse often. That's their little slogan. I have some instructions if you want to go step by step on signing up for an ORCID. That's right there. Okay, the next thing that I have is creating an online profile. And the reason that I recommend Google Scholar Profile is because it includes lots of different publications. If you have a profile on Web of Science, it's going to include Web of Science publications. So Scopus, it's Scopus publications or things that are in those databases. Google Scholar is so much bigger that it's going to include a lot more types of items, conference papers, books, chapters, grade literature. And some of the benefits are that it keeps track of your H index, which is something we'll get to in a minute with metrics. You can set up the profile one time, and then it will notify you when there's a new publication that they think is yours, and you say yes, it is, and it'll just add it automatically. I'm going to take you to a sample Google Scholar, which I actually have open here, and of course it's we. And she's not here right now because she went off to some meeting, even though her face is still there. So here's we's Google Scholar profile. And if you're curious about Old Dominion University, you can click here and see how many ODU people have profiles, and it's a lot of them. And there's a lot of graduate students in there. And it's a good idea as a graduate student to get started if you're going to continue in the publishing world, in the academic world, to set all this stuff up now, so it makes it easier to keep it up. So it gives you the article or whatever it is, but these are all articles here, and then how many times it was cited, and it automatically defaults to the most cited items, and then it goes down. And somehow she's got so none of these have been cited, but some of them are kind of weird reports and things like that are in here because she's the author of the report, but those types of things don't tend to get cited as much. So there's 153 items is what it's telling me here. And then over on the right, these are some of the metrics that we're going to be talking about. So a total of 1,029 citations to all her works, if you add up the cited bys. And then the H index, and I don't know if people know what the H index is, and I'll talk about it in a minute, but that's like a major metric that is used for authors. And what it says is that 18 of her publications have been cited at least 18 times. So you can go to the number 18, and so these are the ones that are counted in the H index. So and that's what a lot of times is used to compare faculty, to compare, researchers. One of the problems is that in certain disciplines, it's just really different. So you have to be careful about comparing across disciplines. You should be discipline specific when you're looking at people's H index. And I'll talk a little bit about the other ones in a minute. So that's Google Scholar profile. There was something else I was going to say. All right, I'm going to go back here because I forget what I was going to say, but I also have instructions for setting up a Google Scholar profile. But other places you want to make sure you're using, probably you have LinkedIn, because theoretically you'll be looking for jobs. ResearchGate, academia, these are networks of researchers that are good to be a part of. All right, so then the third thing I have is getting your work seen and cited. So the more people can find it, the more they're going to be able to use it and cite it, and the credit, you get credit for how many citations you have in a lot of cases. So Digital Commons is one place that you can put your works as graduate students. It's for ODU faculty and graduate students. If you've been in the graduate poster competitions or graduate research day, your posters are probably in there. If you are going to write a thesis or dissertation, those are all in Digital Commons, and they're all available globally. When you do your thesis or dissertation, you do have the option to embargo it. Like we were talking about the creative writing people, they embargo it for like 10 years because they're trying to get it published. So if you have a patent pending or something like that, there are certain reasons that you can embargo it. But that is going to contain the official university copy of your thesis or dissertation. We don't keep them in print in the library anymore. Already talked about author rights. You probably don't have a digital measures account. Setting up alerts. So let me go quickly back to Wheeze, and I'll just show you that if I were we, I could click on this and I could make sure that I get an email for any time there's a new citation to my work. If you have a researcher that you're following or several, you can go to their Google Scholar profile and say that you want to get any new articles by the author, or you could do all these things, and then it would be sent to your email. So there's other types of citation alerts that I have listed here. So in our different databases, you can set up citation alerts so that you know when a topic is posted, or when to know if a new journal is posted. So that's something else that you can do to keep track. And then promoting your research through social media. I'm going to quickly go off to ODU Digital Commons and show you, I think I have time, just to show you a little bit about some of the social media. Andrew Bennett, who's in business management, he did an article about video conferencing fatigue, and somehow it just really got noticed. So what you see here is that from Digital Commons, it was downloaded 3,233 times. And then we have these plum metrics that are an alt metrics type of thing. And if you click on that, it's going to show you that he was mentioned in news articles, Twitter, 8 times in Twitter. And he's been cited in Scopus, he was cited 21 times, and in PubMed 6 times. And there's also, okay, so in a blog, why Zoom meetings are worse for women, cited that. And then there were some news items too that cited it. And in fact, maybe it's here. Anyway, a video from one of the local news channels did a thing on it too, so you can get to that. Let me just quick see if I can see it here. Need the full. Anyway, one of these things is a video. Okay, so this is very useful to have, and it's in Scopus and it's in Digital Commons. And EBSCOhost databases also include plum metrics, so you can sort of see how important this is. So the usage it gets is 4,127. So that was a pretty good article, pretty topical. Another thing about writing your article, pay attention to your title, because you know, especially if it's a topical item, you want to put your keywords in the title so that people that, you know, will be attracted to it based on the title. One of our highest used articles in Digital Commons is from Janet Bing, a linguist who's retired. And I think it was called, "How Many Lesbians Does It Take to Screw in a Light Bulb?" And somehow everybody's downloading that article. Okay, I'm going to go back here. Okay, so let me move on to measuring your impact. And again, I don't know if there's questions, but I'm sorry if I'm going fast.
There's one question that I definitely want us to be able to get to, but it's from a topic earlier, so I don't know if you just want to keep going and we'll try to do it later.
Oh,
or if you want to do it now.
We can do it now. What
Okay.
is it?
Okay, so let me just scroll up and get to it. So the question is, how can we ensure that all copyright procedures are being followed correctly by others when they're using our data or sites? So when they're using like our work, our data in the future, how can we ensure that it's being done ethically and correctly and legally?
I don't really think there's a way to do that easily. You can find out who's using it. You can, you know, as long as they're citing you, but if they're not citing you, then it would be really hard to know that. And so there's a matter of trust, I guess, but really there's not an easy way to find out. But if you do find out that someone is using it against your copyright, you can, you know, bring a lawsuit. A lot of times what happens, you can tell them they can't be doing it and they'll take it down. So yeah, I think that's kind of a tough question. There are legal ways to do it, but it's like finding out who's doing it or how they're using it is what would be hard to do. So
Thanks,
that's a
Karen.
good question. Yeah, sorry, I don't have a good answer. Yeah. The thing is, you want to make things open so that people can use it for good. But you can't guarantee that that's going to happen. I don't know if that helps. Okay.
That was the only one. So if you want to go back to your
Okay.
outline, that's cool. Thank you.
All right, you're welcome. So about research metrics. Now, there is that caveat that measuring impact isn't a perfect science. There are a lot of people who argue against using it altogether. However, right now, there are certain metrics that's what we use. And we hope that like a promotion and tenure committee doesn't just use one metric, doesn't just say, you didn't publish in a high impact journal, therefore we're not going to grant you promotion. There's a lot of, you have to look at it in the totality. You have to look at the discipline. You have to look at a lot of different things. So I'll put that caveat out there, but really it's a work in progress trying to get things changing, especially with like promotion and tenure committees that are using the same metrics that they've always used. The Scopus author profile is a way for you to find out, and I have Wheeze up here right now, is a way to find out the H index, and it's different. I forget what it was. Let me just check real quickly. It was 18 in Google Scholar, and it's 10 in Scopus, because as I mentioned, Google Scholar is looking at a lot more publications than what Scopus will be looking at and what Web of Science. So here's the Web of Science, has an 8 H index. So, you know, to me, Google Scholar is the best index to use for that. So I have them all here. You can look at the Scopus author profile, Web of Science. Publons is the one that I mentioned. It also includes peer reviewing, and then the Google Scholar profile. And we looked at that and talked about the H index. And then, so an author will have an H index based on the citations to all of their articles. And then the journal also will have an H index based on the number of citations in that journal divided by, for 2 years, divided by the number of articles in the journal. So there's lots, it's kind of mind boggling how many different metrics there are for measuring things. So putting together a portfolio of your publications and your worth and your impact, you want to use the best that that you can. So focus on the ones that shed the best light on you. Cited reference searching, what this counts is how many times your articles have been cited. And you can find that out through, as you saw through Google Scholar, tells you for her articles. If you click on this, what you'll be able to see is the 81 references. And it also gives you a little chart of when. So this article came out in 2014, so it looks like it got a lot of use and then little less use as time went on. But it was cited, so it was cited by 81 papers, and you can see the listing here. I'm trying to see if one would be, I see lots of journals. If it were in a book, it would be, that would also come up. I'm not sure if this is a report. This could be a report from Biomed Central. Anyway, so it's going to look at more than just articles. And there is a guide right here on how to do cited reference searching, but it's pretty straightforward. Let me go to Web of Science and see author records. So here are, oh, that's just her. Anyway, recent publications. Let me see. Oh, it's going here. Anyway, I don't have time, but you can just look at an individual article and see how many times it was cited, what journals cited it. That can be important as well. Okay, so, you know, and the other thing is when you see those graphs of how the articles being used over the years, you know, the more it continues to be used, maybe that you can say the value of it is more because it's still valuable over time. So journal and publisher metrics, and this is another place you can go to figure out what journal to publish in. You can find out what the impact factor is. You can find out, there's different impact factors. So the phrase journal impact factor is a Web of Science metric. And that was like the only one that was being used for a long time. So that became the standard, but there's a lot of problems with that using the journal impact factor because it only is referring to journals that are published in the Web of Science. And the same thing, CiteScore and SciMago, those are for Scopus, journals that are in Scopus, which is, there's a lot more than what's in Web of Science. So I just don't know if I have time. We're running out of time here, but so you can get the impact factor, and I wish I had a sample of it, but I don't. Anyway, hopefully you can come back to this guide and see what some of these metrics mean. There is a thing on how to search journal citation reports, and then there's one on how to search Google Scholar for the journal metrics. All right, I am gonna also, for books, there are different metrics that you can use. And then again, we talked about alt metrics. And then another thing that people can use is download counts. So for faculty and graduate students who have their work in Digital Commons, when you list your publications in your story that you're gonna write about your publications, you can say that, or Andrew Bennett can say my article was downloaded, whatever it was, 3,000 something times, with the idea that people are using it. And a lot of people that go to Digital Commons, they're people that aren't necessarily researchers. They're people that are from other countries and they don't have access to the journals that we have here because we're able to subscribe to them. So in a lot of poorer countries, the way that they get to things is whatever's out there on the web. So if they can find an article through Digital Commons, that is a good thing for them, and they can still cite it. And a lot of students use Digital Commons. So those citations aren't going to count, but at least you can say it was downloaded. And lots of other information. Oh, here's more about the H-index. But I wanted to leave time for questions. So, and I know people are going to need to leave. So can I stop sharing and see, Abby, are there any other questions I need to be addressing?
There aren't any new questions in the chat. I don't know if people have others that they want to ask now, but we've covered everything in the chat so far.
Okay. Robin Dunbar, your thesis. You should also find it in Digital Commons. What year did you do your thesis?
Just last year, I went, last summer graduated and then went right into the PhD program from there. But it's really been fabulous. They send me a map and it's pretty much monthly that shows me who's downloading it and where around the world.
Okay, I think that's Digital Commons that's sending you that.
Okay, I love it. I see ProQuest on it.
Okay.
So, but it could be Digital Commons, but I just knew that it was connected somehow. But it's exciting. It keeps you motivated.
Yes.
I did have a question, if you don't mind, though.
Sure.
So I have nothing else published at this point. Do we still, I mean, I hope to in the future. So do we still go ahead and register on these other sites that you're recommending, even if you haven't published yet?
Yeah, I still think it's a good idea. I mean, if you're going to be publishing, why not start it now? The one thing I also want to say about Google Scholar, make sure you don't tell them they can, like your name is pretty common. So make sure you tell them that you want them to send you what's new so you can approve it before it goes into your Google Scholar profile. There is someone at ODU who's got the most than anyone because her name is common. And she probably said, just put everything in, and they're dumping all kinds of stuff that's not her. She's in education and it's brain surgery and all kinds of stuff that, you know, it's not her. So just make sure you do that. Make sure you tell them, or, you know, somehow when you're signing up, it will give you the option to have them automatically put it in, and you don't want to do that. You want them to let you know, and then you'll get emails saying, is this you? And you can say yes or no.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I just looked at
I have
your
a question.
thesis. Oh, sure.
Karen.
Yes.
If there is a paper is based on data, when submitting, what's the best practice regarding whether uploading? We should upload the data. I may miss the point you discussed already. So
Yeah. What discipline are you in?
IT.
IT. The thing about your data, you don't have to, unless you're getting funding and they say you have to publish your data open access, then you need to put it somewhere. And we have I had someone who was a graduate student, he's graduated now, in oceanography, and he was told that he had to have his data open before they would publish his article. So we put it in Digital Commons and followed the data procedures and everything. So then he was able to get his article published. And so it's still there for people who want to use that data. It's open and available.
So it's not mandatory mandate.
No, it's not mandated unless you're getting funding.
Oh, okay.
But it's a good practice to make your data available to other people because you've gone through the work, you've done it, and other people can benefit from it. So I think it's always a good idea.
And
to do
Karen,
that.
this is Wee.
Yes. Oh, hi, Lee.
Thank you.
Sorry. I do want to also note that some journals actually ask you to share your data.
Yeah, that was this
Give you
one
the
case.
opportunity to share your
Yeah.
data when you're publishing with them. So that's something to keep in mind as well.
Yeah. And a lot of graduate students put their data as additional files into their thesis or dissertation, which is really nice. So if somebody reads it and goes, oh, that's really interesting stuff, right? They have the data right there that they can use.
So even for some journals ask for the data, so you don't still need, you still have the choice. You don't have to upload your data. Right.
If they tell you to, if they tell you they can't publish your article if you don't have the data, then you won't get your article published. But a lot of journals don't require it. So if that's the case, then you don't have to.
Oh, thank you.
Okay. Are you seeing your thesis, Robin? Riverology?
Yes.
So it says it has 33 downloads and 24 people have looked at it. Is that the kind of stuff that you're getting?
Yep. And somewhere they send me a map.
The map. Okay, that's your readership dashboard. But it's not on here. I can see it because I'm an administrator, but that goes to you, and it shows you little round circles of where in the world people are looking at it. Yeah.
And it comes to me, I feel like it comes to me monthly.
Yeah, it's probably monthly. Yeah, and if you're using your ODU student ID and then you leave ODU, you may not get that anymore. So you just need to contact us and we can change it to a different email address.
It's made me go back to make sure that it reads accurately.
Yeah, well, when we started doing this electronic theses and dissertations in 2016, that was one of the things that, we let students know, better be good quality because it's out there. And in fact, we've put all dissertations from back to 1978 in digital commons. So all the old stuff's in there too. And we're going to be doing that with master's theses. Because in the past, master's theses didn't have to go to ProQuest. So they're in the dissertations are in ProQuest and they're in digital commons, but ProQuest is a subscription database. So a lot of people can't get there because they don't have the subscription, but they can get to it from digital commons. So any other questions?
So just as a follow-up, I'd asked Abby to put that link to the library guides back in the chat. So if you wanted additional information from what Karen had covered, that link is now in the chat. So check it out.
Okay, and like I said, I put the if you want to see the PowerPoint or get a copy of the PowerPoint, you can email me and I'll send it to you, or you can go to the guides to it's on 2 of the guides, where to publish your work and metrics and research impact and metrics.
And I'll post this workshop's information on the Career Pathways website along with the slides once I get the slides from Karen. So that will also be available on the Career Pathways website.
Okay, yeah, I did have one other slide that said thank you. And that's here. So my information is all there, and I'm really happy to work with anyone individually. So I know I talked fast. There's a lot more to talk about, but you can only say so much in an hour. If you want to contact me, I'm happy to sit down with you or Zoom with you or call you and talk more about it.
And I put your email in the chat.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Oh, no, I just said I put Karen's email in the chat.
Okay.
Perfect. So I do want to thank all of you for joining us for this workshop. I hope your questions were answered, but you also have Karen's email if you wanted additional information. If you had more questions, please feel free to reach out. And on behalf of the workshop organizing team, I wish you all the best with your publishing efforts. Don't give up.